You know, they say opposites attract, and that is certainly the case when it comes to one high-profile couple. Over a decade ago, on Valentine's Day, a United States Senator named William Cohen married former television personality Janet Langhart in the U.S. Capitol.
If so answered, I will.
I will.
He is white and she's African American. He's a Republican, she's a Democrat. In 1997, Cohen went on to become Secretary of Defense in the Clinton administration, and together they traveled the world. Now they've written about their enduring romance in a new book called Love in Black and White, a memoir of race, religion, and romance. Secretary Cohen, Janet, nice to see you both. Good to have you back here. So you guys met in a chance encounter. You looked up at a television station one day, your eyes locked with this beautiful lady, and you developed a friendship that didn't turn into a romance for a couple of years, actually. When it did start to become a romance, did you two actively discuss race and what it would mean?
I never did. Did you?
Well, we did when I proposed to Janet on several occasions. She said no. And I asked her why not, and she indicated she didn't want to be the wife of a senator, but that was code language saying she thought it would injure my career if we were married and I was still in the Senate.
Yeah, we didn't discuss race, but I thought my race would hurt his career. And he asked me many times to marry him, and I said, I will if you leave the Senate.
You were worried about talking to your folks about Janet being African American, and as it turned out, they treated you like gold.
They were wonderful.
But the other was a little bit dicey, introducing Bill.
Well, he never met my father, but my father did get word I was marrying someone white and didn't like it, and sent a letter to me saying, why would you, a flower of our race, marry someone who's oppressed us? And I said, well, Bill hasn't oppressed us.
You got to Washington, all right? You did. What was it like for you fitting into social circles? Did you ever get the sense, Janet, that people were polite to you in public and maybe whispering behind your back?
No, I didn't. I didn't get that impression at all. Bill would tell me stories of how one of his colleagues had said something about my race or my lineage as to my intelligence. You want to tell that story?
Well, one of my colleagues said, which one of Janet's parents is white? And I said, neither. Why do you ask? He said, well, she's so intelligent. And
What'd you say?
I was dumbfounded by it. I don't think he understood what he was saying at that time. But
another guy
clearly
pulled you aside one day and said to you something like, oh, it's got to be hard for you. You have to be so careful because you're a politician. You have to be careful what you do in public. Obviously, with a wink and a nod, referring to the fact you were with an African-American woman.
He was looking directly at Janet at the time, and fortunately, I was able to restrain my Irish temper and not slug him, but I had to exercise control at that time.
The book is a love story. It's a story about romance. It's also, I think, a progress report.
It is.
On where we are in this country. So where are we?
Because we lived in the shadow of World War II. I lived in a segregated apartheid America where there were signs up in this beautiful country saying colored only, white only. So things have changed. In 1967 or up until 1967, Matt, Bill and I would have been outlaws for trying to marry each other. That was the Supreme Court decision in 67, Loving versus Virginia, that said people of different races could marry.
So where are we? When you were being considered for Secretary of Defense, did the discussion of your spouse's race ever come up?
It never came up. As a matter of fact, I think that I was probably aided by Janet's presence.
I was an asset. My race was an asset, finally.
Speaking of progress reports, I can't help but ask, we have an interesting campaign going on for president in 2008. Is America, in your opinion, you can both answer this, ready to elect an African-American or to elect a woman?
Or a Mormon.
Or a Mormon.
Well, I'm a twofer. And people often ask me, am I going to vote my race or my gender? And I say, no, I'm going to vote my interest. But you mentioned Mormon. I hate to talk about anybody's faith, but if you understand the Mormon faith, up until 1978, an interracial marriage, the Mormons would have considered a sin. They would have considered me as an African-American cursed, that God didn't hear my prayers.
So there's going to be a lot of questions asked of candidate Romney.
And the next time you ask...
that's back in 1978, I think.
That's what I said, up in 78.
Yeah.
Let me end on one quick military question. This surge of troops in Baghdad, 20,000 additional troops as former Secretary of Defense, can that bring the violence under control?
I think it's going to be questionable as to whether 20,000 will do it. I think if we're going to bring it under control, you need a lot more. But I think the President's also determined to put the 20,000 in, and I'm not sure that Congress can stop it, has the ability or willingness to try and stop that other than through non-binding resolutions. So I think they're going to go forward.
William Cohen and Janet Langhart Cohen, nice to have you here.
Oh,
good to see you back. All right, it's a pleasure.
Real good to see you, as always.
And the book is fascinating. Pick it up. It's a good read. There it is right there.